Jesus came to me and said, "Get away from those nuclear power places right now. Anyone who stays there will face terrible danger. There's going to be a huge blast that will shake the whole world and nobody will be able to run away from it. Please listen to me because this is super important for everyone who believes in God right now. Stay with me because not paying attention to this could hurt you badly. Like this video, write Amen in the comments. Tell me where you live and let's begin. My name is Roger Peter. It was a hot, sticky night at the Milano nuclear power plant in northern Italy. I was finishing my last safety check on reactor number 3 when suddenly my chest felt like it was on fire. The pain was sharp and terrible, like being hit by lightning right in my heart. I grabbed onto the control desk, trying to breathe, but everything got blurry. The last thing I remember was falling down on the cold floor and thinking, "God, please not now, not like this." Then everything went black and quiet. Felt like the whole world just stopped. I can't explain why God picked a regular nuclear worker like me to bring this message to people. But maybe He always uses normal, everyday people to talk to others. And I believe in God. I trust His choices. Because after I died, something amazing happened to me that I could never have imagined. I was brought to see Him. It was Jesus. I really loved God with all my heart. I talked to Him in prayer every single night. And then I heard His voice for the first time giving me a job to do. "Roger," He said, "you have to go back. I have something important for you to do, and you need to do it before it's too late." Jesus took my hand. Felt like He was holding every part of me, even parts one didn't know I had. He brought me to a high place where I could look down and see the whole earth below. Oh, it was so beautiful. But then I saw something else that made me look closer. Angels. Not scary, burning ones like you might think about, but bright, shining beings that glowed with such amazing light it took my breath away. They were floating over nuclear power plants all around the world. Milano in Italy, Flamingville in France, Vogel in Georgia, Fukushima in Japan. I thought they would be singing happy songs, but they weren't. They were crying. Tears of hurt, of sadness, of caring so much that it made my heart break to watch them. I turned to Jesus, my voice shaking. Why are they crying? I couldn't understand it. Why were these heavenly angels crying over these nuclear plants? What could make them so sad? The answer was coming, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. Jesus let out a long, sad breath, and I swear I could feel His sadness wash over me like a giant wave that never ended. His voice was gentle but heavy when He said, "They are crying for the millions of people who will die in nuclear fires. Roger, I'm taking away my protection from these places." I looked more carefully, my heart beating fast. He was right. There was a soft, glowing light around the nuclear plants, like a shield made of light. It was weak but real. It wasn't the light from electric systems. It was something deeper, more special, God's own presence. But as I watched, that light was going away, getting weaker like water going back out to sea. Instead, darkness was creeping in. Not just regular nighttime, but something thicker and heavier, like fog you can't breathe through. It wasn't just missing light. It was missing hope, missing love, missing God's protection. Jesus' words echoed in my head. My protection is leaving. The nuclear plants looked so weak and unprotected. As that thick darkness came closer, swallowing up everything good, I wanted to scream and beg Him to stop, but I knew this was bigger than me, bigger than anything I could understand. Jesus looked down at the power plants below, and I followed His gaze. First, He showed me Milano where I worked. Those big cooling towers stood up tall like monuments to what humans could build, symbols of power and progress. But then it was like a curtain was pulled back and I saw what was really happening underneath. It was ugly. The corruption was so thick it made me feel sick to my stomach. I saw workers, engineers, and plant bosses making secret deals with shadowy people, money being passed around, safety rules being ignored, important systems being broken on purpose. In those control rooms, people were making choices that put millions of lives in danger. But they were cold and didn't care, with no concern for human life at all. It was like watching a machine work, powered only by greed. Jesus' voice was steady but full of sadness. They built their safety on lies, Roger, forgetting the most important trust. My heart sank. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The betrayal, the pride, it was too much. I felt both disgusted and heartbroken, knowing these were people I worked with, people I trusted. Then I saw something that made my blood feel like ice. Foreign spies dressed up as maintenance workers were putting small devices inside Reactor 3. They moved with perfect timing like they'd done this many times before. These weren't random troublemakers. This was a planned attack that took months, maybe years to prepare. Who are they? I asked Jesus, my soul shaking. Servants of darkness, Roger. They work for evil powers that want to bring chaos to the world. They've snuck into nuclear plants on 3 different continents. I watched as they planted what looked like tiny computer chips inside the reactor's cooling system. The devices were so small you could barely see them, but I could sense their evil purpose. They were programmed to cause a meltdown at exactly the right time. Jesus took my hand again and the scene changed. It wasn't just a picture anymore. It was like stepping into a nightmare happening in real time. It was October 15th, 2:23 in the afternoon. The world seemed normal. People going about their daily lives, kids playing at schools, families eating lunch. Then, out of nowhere, the sirens started. Not regular emergency sirens. These were different. A bone-chilling wail that echoed across northern Italy, carrying pure panic in its wake. Felt like the air itself was screaming. Then came the voices, thousands, millions of them, all at once, like the whole area woke up trapped in the worst kind of nightmare. Screams of terror and confusion filled every street, every home, every corner. I could feel this wave of raw fear spreading like wildfire, gripping every heart, every soul. It wasn't just noise. It was chaos, alive and never-ending, pulling everyone into its grip. My spirit shuddered, trying to make sense of it all. But the pure terror of that moment was overwhelming, like nothing I'd ever known. Then I saw the explosion. Not just any explosion. A nuclear blast unlike anything the world had seen since Chernobyl, but much, much worse. A blinding flash burst from Reactor 3, brighter than the sun, followed by a massive fireball that climbed into the sky like the hand of death itself. The shock wave rippled outward at incredible speed, knocking down everything in its path. Buildings, trees, cars, all swept away like toys in a hurricane. The heat was so intense it turned everything to vapor within 5 miles. People didn't even have time to scream. They were simply gone. My soul trembled, tears streaming down my face. Even though I had no body to cry with, the destruction was so complete, so sudden. Felt like the end of everything. I wanted to look away, to hide from the horror, but I couldn't. This was real, and it was only the beginning. The explosion wasn't just contained to the plant. The radioactive cloud spread rapidly, carried by the wind toward Milan, Venice, even reaching Switzerland and Austria. I watched in horror as the invisible death crept over major cities. In Milan, people were going about their normal day when the evacuation alarm started blaring. But it was too late. The radioactive cloud had already arrived. I saw families running through the streets, children crying, elderly people collapsing from panic and radiation sickness. Jesus spoke, his voice heavy with sorrow. This is what happens when people play with forces they don't understand. When greed becomes more important than wisdom. The highways became death traps. Millions of people trying to run away all at once. But the radiation was faster. Cars left on the roadside as drivers became too sick to keep driving. Gas stations overrun. Fights breaking out over fuel. It was chaos beyond imagination. But the worst part wasn't the immediate explosion. It was what came after, the slow, painful death from radiation poisoning. I saw hospitals overflowing with victims. Their skin burned, their hair falling out, their bodies slowly shutting down. Doctors and nurses overwhelmed, many of them contaminated too. Why, Lord? I cried out. Why allow this? Because mankind chose to ignore my warnings, Roger. They chose money over people, power over protection. This is what happens because of their choices. But Jesus wasn't finished showing me the horror. The scene shifted and I saw that Milano was just the beginning. The same group that attacked my plant had plans to hit 3 other places at the same time. Jesus showed me this explosion would be the signal for the others. I watched in terror as similar attacks happened. Flaminville in France on October 22nd. The same small devices, the same devastating explosion, the same radioactive cloud spreading toward Paris. Millions more dead or dying. Then Vogel in Georgia, United States on November 15th. The southeastern United States covered in radioactive fallout. People evacuating from Atlanta. Chaos spreading across America. Finally, a plant in Pakistan on December 3rd. The most devastating of all because the radiation would spread across multiple countries, creating a worldwide crisis. For nuclear explosions in 2 months, Jesus said, his voice filled with deep sadness. Each one triggered by the same network of evil. They call it Project Dark Winter. Their plan to make the world unstable through nuclear terror. My spirit was overwhelmed. For nuclear disasters, millions dead. Entire areas unlivable for generations. It was beyond what I could understand. But Roger, Jesus continued, this isn't just about causing destruction. This is part of a bigger plan. The scene changed and I saw men in expensive suits sitting in a fancy conference room deep underground somewhere in Switzerland. They were watching news footage of the nuclear disasters and they were smiling. These men planned the attacks, Jesus explained. They belong to a secret organization that wants to control the world through crisis. When people are terrified, when their governments fail, they will accept any solution, any leader who promises safety. I watched as these men started the next phase of their plan. Food shortages because the radioactive fallout had contaminated huge farming areas. Energy crisis because nuclear plants worldwide were shut down in panic. Economic collapse as stock markets crashed and money became worthless. In the chaos that follows, Jesus said, they will come forward as the saviors. They will offer a new world order, a global government that promises to prevent future nuclear disasters. And terrified people will welcome them with open arms. It was diabolical. Use nuclear terror to create the problem, then present themselves as the solution. Control through fear. And that's when they'll introduce their final tool of control, Jesus continued. I saw massive lines of people desperate for food, medicine, and shelter in the wake of the nuclear disasters. But to receive help, they had to accept a small chip implanted in their right hand or forehead. The officials claimed it was for radiation monitoring and medical treatment. But Jesus showed me the truth. This is the mark of the beast that the book of Revelation warned about, Jesus said. Once people accept this chip, they can be tracked, controlled, even killed from far away if they fight against the new government. I watched as those who refused the chip were denied food, water, and medical care. They were left to die in the radioactive wasteland. But those who accepted it became slaves, their every movement watched, their thoughts eventually controlled through the chip's brain interface. The nuclear disasters are just the beginning, Roger. The real goal is to enslave humanity's soul. Then Jesus showed me something that completely broke my heart. My own family, my wife Elena and my daughter Sarah, standing in one of those helplines in the weeks after the Milano explosion. Papa isn't coming back. I heard Elena tell Sarah through her tears. We have to survive without him. They were thin, sick from radiation exposure. Desperate. When the officials offered them the chip, promising food and medical treatment, Sarah reached out her hand. No! I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was just a spirit, unable to warn them. This is what will happen if you don't return with my warning, Jesus said gently. Your family will be faced with an impossible choice. Accept the mark and lose their souls, or refuse it and die from radiation poisoning. The pain was unbearable. To see my beloved wife and daughter, the two people I loved most in the world, forced to choose between dying in their bodies or dying in their souls. It was torture beyond description. Please, I begged Jesus. Let me save them. Let me warn them. That is exactly why I'm sending you back, Roger. When you return to your body, Jesus continued, you will have exactly 72 hours to prevent this disaster. Not a minute more, not a minute less. But how can I stop something so huge? I asked. You know the technical systems better than anyone, Roger. You know where they planted the devices. You know how they work. But more importantly, you now know when the attack will happen. October 15th at 2:23 p.m. Jesus showed me the exact location of the sabotage devices in Reactor 3. They were attached to the main cooling system's control circuits, programmed to cause an overheating sequence that would lead to meltdown. But they could be found and removed if someone knew exactly where to look. You must convince your supervisors to shut down Reactor 3 for emergency inspection on October 14th, Jesus instructed. Tell them you had a vision. Tell them whatever you must, but get that reactor offline before 2:23 p.m. on October 15th. And the other plants, you must contact the authorities in France, America, and Pakistan. Give them the exact dates and times. Some will listen, others won't, but your job is to warn them. But Roger, there's something more important than preventing the nuclear disasters, Jesus said. I need to show you who will be truly safe when the darkness comes. The scene shifted, and I saw people running away from the areas around nuclear plants. But I noticed something remarkable. Some of them had a gentle light surrounding them, a peace so deep it seemed to glow from within. Even when they passed through radioactive zones, the radiation couldn't harm them. On their foreheads I saw a mark. Not a physical tattoo, but a spiritual seal, bright and unmistakable. This is the seal of the living God, Jesus said. The mark of those with true faith, complete obedience, and hearts that are sorry for their sins. As Revelation 7 verse 3 says, do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. Only those with this seal are truly protected. I watched in amazement as these sealed believers walked through radioactive wasteland unharmed, shared their food with the hungry, and shone with God's light in the midst of darkness. The nuclear disasters are terrible, Roger, but they're not the end. They're a test, a separation. Those who truly belong to me will be protected, not necessarily from suffering, but their souls will be safe. Those who don't. Jesus' voice trailed off, heavy with sorrow. Roger, when you return, you must tell people that the seal is available to everyone who genuinely says sorry for their sins and accepts me as Lord and Savior. Not just words, but a complete surrender of their hearts. But will they listen, Lord? Some will, some won't. But those who do will be ready for what's coming. Because the nuclear attacks are just the beginning. After the global government is established, after the mark of the beast is put in place, then comes the final judgment. Jesus showed me a vision of his return, coming in clouds of glory with armies of angels. The same men who had planned the nuclear disasters were shaking in terror, trying to hide in their underground bunkers. But there was nowhere to run from the King of Kings. Every knee shall bow, Roger. Every tongue shall confess. Those who chose my seal will be taken up to eternal life. Those who chose the mark of the beast will face eternal judgment. Everything started to fade. The light, Jesus, the visions. It all slipped away like a dream dissolving at dawn. Then a jolt, like I was being yanked back hard. My eyes snapped open. My head spun. Pain screaming through every inch of my body. Beeping machines, voices murmuring. The sharp smell of hospital cleaners in the air. I was in a hospital room, white and sterile. I was lying in a bed, tubes and wires all around me. Elena was there, sitting beside me, her face swollen from crying. She looked up, her red-rimmed eyes locking onto mine, and she broke down again. But this time it was different. Roger, you're awake. Oh, thank God, she sobbed, grabbing my hand. Her tears were joy now, not grief. I tried to smile, but my body ached too much. I had died. My heart stopped for 11 minutes. My body was broken and somehow I was back, alive. But I wasn't the same Roger anymore. That man who just did his job and worried about retirement plans was gone. I'd seen heaven, stood before Jesus, and carried a message that burned in my soul. My throat was dry like sandpaper, but I had to speak. Elena, honey, I saw Jesus, I croaked. Her face shifted, worry creasing her brow. She squeezed my hand, thinking I was confused, maybe still mixed up from the heart attack or the medicines. The doctors agreed, muttering about brain damage from lack of oxygen and hallucinations. But I knew what I'd seen wasn't a dream or a hallucination. It was real. As real as the bed I was lying in. I had exactly 72 hours. 72 hours to convince my supervisors to shut down Reactor 3. 72 hours to contact nuclear authorities in 4 countries. 72 hours to save millions of lives. The plant supervisor, Dr. Rossi, came to see me the next day. I told him everything, the vision, the sabotage devices, the exact date and time of the planned attack. "Roger, you've suffered severe heart trauma," he said gently. "These hallucinations are normal. You need rest, not worry about the plant." "Please," I begged. "Just order an inspection of Reactor 3's cooling system. Check the control circuits. You'll find the devices." He patted my shoulder and left, unconvinced. But God had prepared a way. That afternoon, my colleague Giuseppe called me. "Roger, something strange happened today. We were doing routine maintenance and found some unusual components in Reactor 3. They're not part of our system. We've shut down the reactor pending investigation." My heart leaped. Jesus had said some would listen. Giuseppe was one of them. The investigation revealed exactly what I had seen in my vision. Sophisticated sabotage devices programmed to trigger on October 15th at 2:23 p.m. The authorities were called, the devices were removed, and Italy's nuclear program was saved. But my mission wasn't complete. I had to warn the other countries. I called nuclear authorities in France, the United States, and Pakistan, giving them specific details about the planned attacks. Most hung up on me. Some listened politely but did nothing. But a few took the warning seriously. In France, a security inspection of Flaminville on October 21st revealed similar devices. The attack was stopped. In Georgia, my warning was ignored. On November 15th, Vogtle plant suffered a mysterious explosion that contaminated most of the southeastern United States. Millions were evacuated. Thousands died. Pakistan also ignored the warning. The December 3rd attack proceeded as Jesus had shown me, creating a radioactive disaster across South Asia. 2 plants saved, 2 plants lost. Millions of lives saved, millions of lives lost. I had done what Jesus asked, but I still carry the weight of those who wouldn't listen. In the months following the nuclear disasters, everything Jesus showed me began to unfold. Global economic collapse, food shortages, the rise of a world government promising to solve the nuclear crisis. And yes, the introduction of the chip, the mark of the beast. But I also saw the fulfillment of God's promise. Those who received his seal were protected not from all suffering, but their souls were safe. They formed underground communities, sharing resources, caring for the sick, and shining Christ's light in the darkest times. My wife Elena and daughter Sarah both received Jesus as their Lord and Savior after hearing my testimony. They bear his seal now. When the authorities came offering the chip, they refused, and God provided for them in miraculous ways. I'm telling you this story not to frighten you, but to offer you hope. Yes, dark times are coming. Nuclear disasters, global government, the mark of the beast. It's all real and it's all coming soon. But Jesus is also real. His love is real. His protection is real. And his seal is available to anyone who will genuinely say sorry for their sins and surrender their life to him. Don't wait for the crisis to hit. Don't wait for the disasters to unfold. Accept Jesus now while there's still time. Let him place his seal on your forehead. Because when the darkness comes, and it is coming, only those who belong to him will be truly safe. The nuclear clock is ticking. The prophetic countdown has begun. But Jesus is still calling, still offering salvation, still extending his hand to pull you from the coming disaster. Will you take it? This isn't just about running from nuclear plants or hiding in bunkers. It's about where you'll spend eternity. It's about whether you'll bear the seal of God or the mark of the beast when the final choice comes. I've seen both destinies. I've witnessed both fates. And I'm begging you, choose Jesus. Choose life. Choose his seal. Because time is running out, and the next explosion is closer than you think. If this testimony has moved your heart, if you feel the Spirit calling you to prepare, please subscribe to this channel. We'll continue sharing warnings, testimonies, and messages from heaven about the times we're living in. Don't be caught off guard when these prophecies begin to unfold. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And may God bless you as you seek His truth in these final days.